Welcome to Bleach Revisited. I am Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of the art and the narrative, as well as personal response to those chapters. We'll also be discussing how each chapter connects to the rest of the series as a whole. As usual, we begin these videos by reading the chapter that we are currently discussing. This is Chapter 81, 12-Tone Rendezvous. Miss Orihime! Hey, not bad. Mr. Ishida, it's narrow, but it's getting there. That shape must be a reflection of your personality. Mr. Chad! Whoa! It's a little unstable, but strong. Mr. Ichigo! Ah! It's terrible. What is it? I can't stand to look upon it. Indeed. Trying hard won't help. You just don't have the talent. It's terrible. Too terrible. Kokarahiko. Ooh. I don't know how to do it. Give me a tip or something. Jeez. Bleach. Chapter 81. 12-Tone Rendezvous. Boss, dinner's ready, but guess you're busy. Okay, you guys, dinner's ready. Go eat. I'm sure you must be hungry. Come to think of it. They didn't feed you and Rukon guy, did they? Those guys over there don't know how to use their spirit powers, so they don't get hungry. Well, but Ichigo's. Don't worry about me. Go eat. I'll be there as soon as I get this down. All right, I guess we'll go. Are you coming, Orihime? I'm okay. I'll wait for Ichigo. I'm not really that hungry. My stomach exaggerates. I'm really not hungry at all. Orihime, go. I'll be fine. But I want to practice some more too. I'm not really that hungry, so Orihime, please. Okay, I'll go then if you really want me to. I'll see you there, Ichigo. Hey, wait, Orihime. Come on, are you? Come on, Chad. Okay. What are you looking at? What's it to you? You're distracting me. Leave. Shut up. Whatever. Still nothing. No! Here I go. 1, 2, 1, 2. That's annoying. Get out of here. You're really pushing yourself. Is that important for you to save this Soul Reaper? Not really. Huh? Give me that. Hey. Well, did you promise you'd save her or something? No. Then it's about money. You could pay to save her. Your money's no good in my world, moron. Then why are you trying so hard? I don't get it. I owe her. She saved my life. I haven't repaid her for that yet. She gave her powers to me, a complete stranger, so I could save my family. And that's why she's in trouble. Right now, she's waiting to be executed. I'm not some loser who'd let her die without a fight. Not me. Give me that. Hey, what are you doing? Give it back. I'm going to practice too. You got a problem with that? Then plug your ears and don't listen. I'm going to give you a tip I came up with myself. Ganju. Visualize a circle in your mind. The darker and heavier, the better. Then, imagine yourself diving into the center of it. This is the basic form of all spells. It's totally easy. It's so easy it makes me want to cry. Once you know that trick, even you could do it. Of course, a genius like me wouldn't have to be shown the secret. Well, good luck. You got no talent, so I doubt you'll ever be able to do it like I can later. You're lame. Cocky idiot. Visualize a circle in your mind. Door number 1. There you are. So, what do you have to say for yourself? Captain of the 3rd Company, Gen Ichimaru. Doppler effect. Hey, there's another one. I've been seeing those things a lot lately. I wonder why. The ghost of some animal? That is it for Bleach Chapter 81, the 12-Tone Rendezvous. If I can remember the chapter title from 6 minutes ago. Yep. I'm terrible with names and titles of things. Really, really the worst. So, if I ever forget a character's name, that's usually why. I'm terrible at linking, especially names to things. It's just not a skill that my brain ever developed, I suppose. Anyway, great at other stuff. Conceptually, fine. Names, not me. Let's talk about this chapter. So, immediately the title 12-Tone Rendezvous, I feel like refers to the 12 captains that are meeting at the very end of this chapter. A rendezvous being, a meetup, a gathering, where people that have already gathered are gathering again. Usually, I think that's tends to be the way that rendezvous gets used. Like, let's have a little rendezvous. Rendezvous by the river. Anyway, but it's a French word, as you could tell with the vous, rendezvous. But gets used in a lot of languages because it's a cool word and it's fun to say. Anyway, yeah, so I assume that's what the title is referring to. Not a lot going there, title name wise, but I do think it's kind of hilarious. Is that in the previous chapter, I thought it would be an efficient visual and gag to show them training with a sphere, and I completely forgot that they absolutely just do that in the next chapter. I went ahead the last night and I was like, oh boy, I already made the recording, but here it is, exactly the sort of visual that I was expecting to get, or that I wanted, or even pictured in my mind. And so, yeah, we get to see exactly how everybody creates their own orbs. Orihime doesn't seem to have any problem with it. She can very easily manifest her spiritual power. Uh, Uryu is, he's able to do it, but it's threaded to, like this very narrow shape, which makes sense. He's commonly shooting, even though he's a Quincy and he commonly uses devices to manifest his spiritual energy, it's typically in this way where he is making arrows out of it. So it only makes sense that he has this kind of narrow and sharp sort of energy. Like that they say it's a reflection of his personality, right? Chad, very powerful, but not a lot of control. Makes sense. And then Ichigo can't even do it, right? So I do like that we get this, that we get to see, again, this is exactly the sort of thing that I was talking about before, just getting to see where all of our protagonists are as far as this manifestation of their power, getting a real baseline for everybody, getting to see all of our characters in the way that they wield this orb too is pretty cool. So, it's interesting. Also, I think it's neat that we get that Ichigo struggles with it, even though it's not like an inherently Soul Reaper thing to do. So it's just based off of their individual prowess, and I like that. I like that we have something, because it's easy to write like a protagonist that kind of succeeds at a lot of things, or alternatively to write a protagonist that sucks at everything until they just happen to succeed at the things they're good at. That's pretty commonplace. Like oh, I'm such a loser guy, and I'm thrust in this world full of great guys, and how am I going to ever succeed? It's like whatever. Like I'm over that. Usually that like the idea of having an underwhelming protagonist that has to just scrape by is typically thrown by the wayside pretty quickly in those stories, because it actually, like writing something where a protagonist is overwhelmed and isn't incredibly talented, is difficult to consistently give them wins. I think there's a few series that manage to pull it off, like, and even something like Kaiji, which I like a lot. It's a gambling manga and anime. Um, Even though Kaiji will often lose the gambles that he gets involved in, he's still an incredibly intelligent and lucky guy. Like, there's no denying that, like, his character still has those attributes. He's just not like a super genius or anything. So, like, even then, it's like, you know, just to be able to compete, you have to be at like this level anyway, and that's part of what makes that series as exciting as it is. But I'm trying to think of like truly like, you know, like worthless kind of protagonists that don't have much going on, and it hardly is the case. It just, a lot of series like to play at the idea of an everyman protagonist, or like, you know, a character that doesn't have any sort of special things going on, right? Because that's the idea, is you want these kids to relate. Um, but anyway, the reason why this all comes out of Bleach is that it's nice that we get Ichigo actually having a little bit of a struggle here, and that his friends are on different, like, it's not like they all mastered it. It's, you know, they're all at different places themselves, and so I appreciate that. And I appreciate that this chapter kind of focuses on not just Ichigo's struggle to actually manifest the energy, but also Ichigo's struggle to actually like ask for help, and the way that he deals with conflict gets kind of or like an impassable kind of obstacle gets focused on here too. And we get a little bit of that here. I love that, you know, they instantly insult him. He responds with violence, which is, you know, typical for our protagonist. I think Ganju's just being a dip over here. He's supposed to be helping them with the training, right? That's what Kukaku told him to do. And he's just picking his nose and watching. Um, and I like this. This is a great, you know, I love this. This is such a cool chapter cover. Kukaku with the bomb. I like the kind of comic, you know, what is it? The dot style shading sort of thing for the shadow, I think, is really cool. Um, just overall effective sort of depiction of this character. And I mentioned it before in the last chapter, but Kubo really having a sense for like the planes of the face and where shadows fall across like the face and the body. You can see that pretty well here, not just in the way that this hand is shaded, and the way that we're getting like the distinctions to like show like this is the clearly like the side of the hand and like the back of the hand, like they have a different kind of plane, and so that's shown there. But also, I really love the way that everything has gone from the collarbone up. That we get like the shading of, you know, the head over the neck. That we get that little bit of the divot of the chin, and to the lips. We get a little bit of that here with the I believe that's called your Cupid's bow of your lip, and then we even have a little bit of the lighter shading on the other side of the nose before it goes into the dark. Yeah, I really love this like really heavy black shading, which Kubo experiments using in a couple of these chapter covers, but then would come to be a part of the style that he implements later in the series as well. So it's neat that you can kind of see him flexing it here and kind of exploring a lot of this shading style here that would come to be kind of distinctive about Bleach later on. It's not quite as, you know, heavy as Mike Mignola is the American comics artist, you know, Hellboy, right? If you've ever read any of that, and if you haven't, please do. But if you look at a few pages of that, you can see kind of how heavy you can go with your really dark, you know, just like using absolute shadows to kind of define different features and planes, and it can be really cool. It's definitely a distinctive kind of comic style that I like a lot. Oft praised, and not too hard to do, so long as you again understand what you're really trying to do, use it to depict. Here, of course, we get our setting shot, which is interesting because we're already inside. I think the real reason why we're getting this setting shot with the moon, again, this like, it's nighttime, obviously. Time is important. We only have so many days to go and rescue Rukia after all. But then I think bigger than that, it's you know, there is this looming danger, and like there is this sense that like if we don't complete this in time, you know, there might be an issue. That crescent moon, of course, is always pretty important for Bleach, pretty significant. It used to kind of be something that we could associate with hollows, though that isn't quite the case here. No hollows to be found, but nevertheless, it kind of speaks towards this this knight, this threat of danger, and also helps to transition from the title page to bring us back to where we are. I like it long set against these other panels. It ends up working to kind of pressure them all into different spaces. I like here also, this is a minor thing, but I like that Ichigo is isolated from everyone else. So the rest of his friends are all in one group. Ichigo's on his own and Ganji's on his own over here. I think that does a lot to help to kind of, again, isolate Ichigo within this scene to really help to build up, that he is not, filling it in and working it out. And like even on the page, even when we get these panouts, we still don't get Ichigo on any of the panels. I think that's kind of smartly done. I love that it's revealed that Crow is just, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Crow. Hawk Crow. I'm never going to get his name right. Totally, I'm terrible with names. That he's cooking dinner for them. Like, we can see him in the apron. It's good stuff. We also get a little bit of world building here. So, again, Kubo, terrible world builder, Bleach, worst world building, but here we go, right? It's naturally brought up, like, hey, I didn't feed you because those guys don't, how to use their spirit powers, so they don't get hungry. Because as you remember, Ruki has said, so, the Soul Society, you don't ever need to eat. You don't have to worry about that, going hungry. But you do get hungry if you use your spirit powers. So the idea is that you're exerting this reishi and maybe you have to refill it, right? You have to do some sort of process that's going to help you refill. Because, you're just a reishi construct over here. So there's some sort of reishi caloric sort of thing going on. But, yeah. I like that, they mention, like, going to eat. And I like that Uryu is the first one to sort of be like, hey, yeah, we could go eat, but like Ichigo's still busy. Shouldn't we still focus on the training? And we get a little bit of, again, how Ichigo handles these obstacles. That like he is going to double down, but he doesn't want to be a burden to other people, right? He doesn't want to kind of keep them back. And interestingly enough, we get Orihime kind of going back to her old sort of way of handling problems as well. We get that from her where she really denies like the things that she's having because she's trying to do something nice for either herself or somebody else. And she's going to do that at the expense of like what she actually feels. So even though she's actually hungry, she's trying to kind of ignore that and even lie to herself and others about that in order to, be here to support Ichigo, right? So we get like a little bit of you could call it a flaw for each of these characters, right? That Orihime will insist upon, being dishonest in order to still be here, and that Ichigo will shut others out and try to like handle all the burden on his own. And I like that we get this kind of moment, where like Orihime is trying to make these different excuses to consider to be here, and Ichigo finally just asks her, and we see like, the put upon smile that she has fade as she realizes again that Ichigo is the one kind of shouldering this burden alone, and that she can't really do much to help him, and that he doesn't want to bring her, like he doesn't want her to suffer on like his behalf, like he doesn't want her to continue to be hungry because he feels like, this is something that he just has to get through. So it's kind of an interesting bit of interaction, and I think that's like one thing that, again, a lot of people will often talk about Bleach, and they'll like, especially with Orihime as a heroine kind of protagonist character that we have. A lot of people will tend to speculate on whether or not like those sorts of relationships are ones that like the series is intentionally building or not. But I think no matter what, like as much as you're into shipping, whatever, I don't think the series tends not to lean into romance very much, as you probably have told 81 chapters in here where there hasn't been like an overtly romantic subplot yet, much less main plot, right? Romance often is not the like on the menu in Bleach. It's just not. But we do get this kind of tension between both Orihime and Ichigo, because Orihime is very much the type of person to ignore her problems to help people she cares about. And Ichigo is the kind of person where if he has problems, he shuts out the people that he cares about. He doesn't want to burden them, right? And so you have this person who's willing to neglect her own burdens, like her own issues, and you have this other person that wants to protect other people by making all those issues his own. And it causes this little bit of tension between them. And I think it's an interesting kind of dynamic between Ichigo and Orihime that we have kind of going into the Soul Society arc. And how that develops, well, we'll find out. I like that she immediately like peps back up, because again, like as we've learned, these sorts of smiles for Orihime, they're put on like as cheerful as she can be, and how much she does dedicate to like whatever sort of line of pursuit that she makes. It's still the sort of thing where like, yeah, she's going to throw herself into it and kind of do it with cheer, even if that isn't entirely how she's feeling. Like she's very much the kind of cheerleading type, I suppose, if that makes sense. Like the type to really be exuberant about the things she decides to do, even if she's not 100% feeling it. So, like again, and that's so much of her personality. Of she wants to put others at ease, right? She wants to make it seem like, oh yeah, okay, then like I'll go, see you there, right? Like she's trying to be supportive, which is overtly so, even though it's not exactly what she wants to do. And Uryu clearly notices that, and she tries to get. I like that she also tries to round up Uryu and Chad, because she realizes what Ichigo's doing. She realizes that he's trying to kind of, that he has some sort of pride tied in this too, but also that he's really trying to kind of handle this on his own, and he doesn't want to be a burden to them, and they all need to go eat, right? Of course, I do love this, Ganju just scratching his ass, being a butt. But we do get a lot of like little back and forth here, and then eventually Ichigo's tries his patented throw the thing at the guy, and doesn't quite work. But I like that Genju does get serious here, and I love this little interaction. I think it's a solid one where it really kind of, again, getting into the volume, helps to define what Ichigo's motivations are, what Ichigo's doing, why he's here. And it's another piece of criticism that Bleach often gets, is that it'll often be, oh well, Ichigo's a reactionary protagonist. You'll hear that a lot, and that's something that I kind of want to dispel as I go on throughout this series of my reading. And I always take the time to kind of engage with those people that say that, because it's such a thing that people, I think, say without thinking about what it really means. First of all, being a reactionary protagonist is not a problem, but also, the idea that Ichigo just reacts to things that appear in his life, and I'd say that's, more realistic towards how things are like actually function. But we'll break down a little bit of what Ichigo says here. I do want to take a beat to explain what I like in this little moment of the art. That Ganju starts to, Ganju, like, we really get this insight into Ganju. It's like, why are you trying so hard if you're not being motivated by like a promise that you have to this person, or monetary gain, right? Like, what's what's really making you push this hard? What's making you shoulder this burden this way? Ganju does not get it, right? And that kind of speaks towards Ganju maybe being, somebody that, even though we know he can be sentimental and that he holds this sort of grudge against Soul Reapers because of what happened to his brother, he still very much is the type of person that like is kind of doesn't understand or comprehend others quite so well, right? And I do like that we get this close up as he starts to yell, and then Ichigo cuts him off. I like that the cutoff comes where Ganju's mouth is, and then we get this kind of close up on Ganju as he's still sort of mid yell. And again, I think Kubo's really realized that, like, you want a character to say something kind of significant, you show them saying it while looking away. This is another looking away Ichigo saying something significant moment, right? But this idea of, she gave her powers to me so I could save my family kind of deal. Now her family's starting to kill her. That's pretty big, right? That's what we're grappling with in this whole like arc. Like these sense of connection, and how society weighs on people and pushes them to either immerse themselves in these lived connections, or to even break those bonds. But I like that we get this refrain. This is a really good callback back to like chapter 2, right? Chapter 2 or 3. Whenever Ichigo fights Hexapotus, I believe. But it's he says he's not the kind of loser to just let somebody get attacked in front of him, right? And not just protect somebody that he sees that needs it. And here, he expresses that he's not the kind of loser who would let her die without a fight. And so we get this, Ichigo has this connection to somebody, and now that their life is threatened, he's going to save them. Like that's just kind of who he is, right? I think it's a strong moment for Ichigo, even though it's something we already kind of knew about him. But it's defining for him, especially, and it kind of helps. This is really, I think, the moment where Ganji realizes that Ichigo is not like other Soul Reapers, right? That in the face of these insurmountable odds, Ichigo's still going to put up a fight because he has this connection to this person who basically sacrificed everything to help him, and he was a complete stranger to her, right? And so Ganji realizes, okay, well, Ichigo's actually like a good dude. Like, Ichigo is his own moral agent. He's defining his morality right now, but he's also defining himself as this individual that's working off of, like, like this, this thing that he feels, right? That he feels like it would be lame. It would make him a loser if he didn't. That he wouldn't be able to live with himself, right? That kind of thing. And I think that's significant, not just for defining Ichigo and defining Ichigo for Ganju, right? Making Ganju take Ichigo a little bit seriously and to stop seeing Ichigo just as another Soul Reaper. But also, it does a lot for us, too. It reaffirms how Ichigo feels about all of this, where Ichigo's coming from. And as you could say, that's, as much as you could say, oh, that's reactionary. He's reacting to Rukia being taken away, right? A lot of us don't go looking for conflict, I think it makes them more relatable. Like, if one of your friends got kidnapped and you could go and save them, like, wouldn't you try, Like, wouldn't you try to do something? And I think it's that sort of thing. And it's like more than just a friend. This is someone who literally risked everything in order to save Ichigo and his family. And, like, we know how much that matters to him. So, of course, he's going to risk everything to save her. It only makes sense. But it's like, in that example I gave you, if someone tried to talk shit on you, like if somebody was like, yo, that makes you less of a great person because you were just reacting to the situation. Like, what a absolute head ass response. Like, what a short-sighted way of taking things. It's not like you're going to proactively go out there and crush the gangs so that they can't kidnap, your friend. That's foolishness, right? And so, like, the whole reactive protagonist thing, like, certainly it makes sense if your character doesn't have drive, if they don't have motivations. They can feel like a much flatter character. They can feel like one that you can build less conflict off of and that feels less definitive. But I don't think Ichigo has any of those problems, right? And if anything, like I said, the whole point of the manga is to make Ichigo this character for us to relate to, this individual struggling against the society that's unjust. And so, therefore, Ichigo should be more like us, the reader. He should be, more reactive to the injustices pushed upon him. So whenever people say, like, oh, Ichigo's a reactive protagonist, yes, but that's not a bad thing. And in the context of the manga, that's the whole point, right? Like, the entire conflict revolves around there is an unjust element of the world, Hollows and now Soul Society, that exists, and Ichigo is reacting to that unjust element in order to protect the people that he cares about. That's the manga, baby. That's what it is, and so that gets kind of encapsulated here, which is why I wanted to take some time to talk about it. I also really like that these shadows get cast on Ichigo this way, and then we get this big shadow cast across Ganju, almost as if like Ichigo's illuminating the room with the sort of thing that he's saying, right? And using the shadows in this way adds a lot of dramatic force to this. Also, of course, Kubo knows that if he just shows, a character walking, if he doesn't show their full expression, he's building a little bit of tension. Like, how's Ganju going to react? What's Ganju going to do in this moment? And of course, we get a bit of a gag as he grabs the spirit core right off of Ichigo's hands and does the whole "give me that" bit that Ichigo was doing before, right? I believe that's the case. Maybe I'm losing my mind. I thought he snatched up and did a "give me that" earlier, but I could just be completely whacked out. Maybe I'm just thinking of an earlier chapter, actually. Yeah, because we opened this way. Yeah, maybe it was the previous chapter I'm thinking of, which is absolutely could be the case. Anyway, let's hop back to where we were, and let's continue on with our analysis of both the art and narrative here, as well as a little bit of my personal response, of course. I sprinkle that in. I try to give a lot of it at the end, or most of it at the end, but as I come to moments like that, I'm going to kind of delve into different things or talk about different narrative moments happening. I like that Ganju kind of immediately justifies, like, oh yeah, I'm going to practice. If you really are, like, this is really a test for Ichigo. Like, if he really is too proud to take advice, then he can just plug his ears, right? But Ganju's not really here to practice. He's more here to express to Ichigo how to do it. And then until this point, Ganju didn't want to because he didn't want to help Ichigo. But like now in this moment, Ichigo, through this bond and through expressing the importance of this bond that he has, Ganju is like inspired. Like he's like, oh man, I want to help this guy because I believe in the sort of morality that Ichigo has. I like that. It's like an admission from Ganju. Like, okay, he goes from not wanting to help Ichigo, even though he could, to helping Ichigo with this. And we also get, again, terrible, awful Bleach world building, absolutely the worst. I bring that up. That's another common criticism, by the way. If you haven't watched many of these videos, or a lot of Bleach content in general, a lot of people will criticize Bleach as having poor world building, and those people don't know what they're talking about. Take it from me, a person with a postgraduate education in fiction and writing fiction and reading fiction. This is good world building. Whenever you have a character express and show the basic form of making spells, that visualization into pushing your own energy into that shape, that's effective. You don't need more than that. You don't need a whole page explaining how spells are done. Like this serves as enough. We get this moment, and we don't need that ever explained again, right? So, and like this comes up organically. It makes sense within the scene for Ganju to explain this, and also it doesn't overstay its welcome. So it's good stuff. The Ganju, it totally plays up how easy it is, even though we know he was huffing after a few seconds before. So he acts all high and mighty about it and then storms off, but I think that's all a show. Like, he's like kind of taunting Ichigo, right? He's like, oh yeah, even you could do it, you absolute loser, but I'm a genius, so maybe someone with no talent like you can even do it like me. Ha ha ha, bye. And I think it's because he knows all that stuff drives Ichigo. He knows the rivalry he has with Ichigo. And I think that's kind of an interesting moment too, because I think Ganju recognizes this connection he has with Ichigo, and he realizes telling Ichigo how to do it's going to help, but also giving Ichigo this kind of this ribbing, even if it's like obviously like hyperbolic, even though it's obviously him like really leaning into this performance. He knows that that's going to make Ichigo try harder, right? Because Ichigo doesn't want to lose out to Ganju, because Ichigo's so like scrappy with Ganju, and so Ganju's like, he says all that I absolutely believe to try to push Ichigo harder for it. And of course, we get Ichigo saying he's lame, because I think Ichigo realizes, on one level, yeah, that absolutely is the case. Ganju is just saying all this shit because, he's trying to, like, grandstand just to motivate Ichigo. But, I mean, we immediately get this shot. I think this following page makes it clear that even though Ichigo recognizes that, he also recognizes that it is effective against him. And so he immediately goes into training. And I do like that we cut from that to these last few pages. So we have, this is the first vision sign, right? Is number 1. Ichimaru Gen over here, of course, has the 3 on his back, the San, and this is Ichi. But one thing that I really love about this, and this is something kind of subtle, not the sort of thing that I would imagine a lot of readers, especially them speed readers, but a lot of readers might overlook this. But we had this earlier, and it might even be the same. If it's the same geometry, it's the same geometry, it's not the same length, because this is about 2/3 page. But if we go back, because I think the moon might even be the same set. If we go back to right at the title page, yeah, it's the same in the sky. We get a half page of this moon overhanging, right? And so it's this clear visual, and then we harken back to that same sort of visual, but even larger, as we come back to what's going to be the threat for Ichigo and his friends, right? We get that same moon hanging as we cut back to the various Soul Reaper captains, the Shinigami. And so here we have Ichimaru again show up last for this meeting, it seems. And we get to see all the other characters. So we have these other captains. Of course, we know Zaraki Kenpachi, and we know Sosuke Aizen. We don't know these other two fellows in the middle here. Old Captain Baskethead and like actual good black representation in manga. Who knew? And then we get a couple of other characters here. This two-page spread doesn't really let us see the person who's in the chair in the middle, the way that it's cut here. I think that's intentional. I'd have to go and look at my copy. I don't think in the physical copy you can see them either way. Either I think they're split in the middle of the page. But this is a two-page spread where we have this is the right page, this is the left page, right? So we have 4 characters there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters here. That's 11 of them. And then the 12th one here is Ichimaru again. But the only characters that we can really recognize out of this lineup over here, we have these 2 women, and then we have old Captain Byakua Kuchiki, Byakua, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to always fumble his name. Anyway, Byakuya. We have him here in the middle, pretty distinctly, but then we have these other characters that we do not know. And I will take a little bit of time to talk about their designs. Of course, we have Ichimaru again. And so you wonder, again, if this is supposed to be if this is supposed to be the 12-tone rendezvous, it's supposed to be referring to the 12 individuals here, because again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whoop, went to the last page. 9, 10, 11, 12. There is a 13th captain who is not present. But since we don't know everyone's name here, we don't know if it is still the Captain Hitsugaya the Genius who was mentioned before. But I don't believe that we have any other captains' names yet. We do know, a couple of divisions, so we know that Momo, she would be Sosuke Aizen's vice captain, and we know that Iba Tetsuzeimon would be whoever is the 7th, and we know that Matsumoto Rengiku, she would be tied to, what was it, the 6th? Am I correct? No, not the 6th, that's Renji. 6 is Byakuya. See, yeah, remembering the numbers is going to trip me up too. It's the, oh boy, it's not coming to me. I want to say the 10th, but I could be wrong. Anyway, so there is somebody missing out of this lineup of the 13. And, we're left to wonder who that might be. But otherwise, let's talk about these designs, because I do think these designs are pretty significant. So as we know, Kenpachi is the kind of battle, furious kind of guy. He was quick to be very aggressive, and he has this longer kind of hilt to his sword. It's less ornate than everybody else's. He's got these bandages over his stomach, open kind of chested, very looks like he's pretty scrappy, right? His robes are all torn on the edges. And he has not just an eye patch and these scars, but he also wears his hair in this kind of crazy spiked pattern with little bells on the end. So, curious design enough for Kenpachi. We have this other captain, which we'll get into. I'll speak more on their designs, obviously, as we spend more time with them. But they've got these sort of like the kind of dreaded out hair. We have like this scarf going on, but also I really do like the kind of goggles or sunglasses sort of look. And their sword, all the swords are kind of featured prominently. So he's got a sword that has this kind of very slim and elegant design and has this ring on the end of it, which is kind of cool. Much bigger fellow, bigger sword, Not much to mention other than their basket head. I assume it's a basket. It might be some sort of metal, but I've always read it as a basket, and I think it's colorized as such for the anime. So, old basket head over here, but much taller, much larger than the others. We have Aizen in the background. We've seen Aizen before. He's not looking that different from how he usually looks. Pretty unassuming. Um, can't really see his Zenpakuto all too well. Fellow in the chair, we don't really get to get a good look at him. There's a much smaller lady at the very end. We can't really see her sword at all. This one with the braid, a little bit closer. We also don't see her weapon. We know Byakuya, he's got his scarf that costs as much as 10 houses and his blade. Here we have this other fellow who is a little bit taller than the rest of them, has a very fancy livery. I love the patterning here on the sash that hangs down way lower than everyone else's, as well as the second coat that's all, festive and has these various floral patterns on it, but also has this hat and has these little, hair deals. Looks like a kind of, very, very, very cool, got the beard, romantic sort of guy. We got this other fella who's like very short, unclear if they're a child. They have some sort of sash, but we do not get to see their sword. And then we get this absolute creepster, where I love this design from top to bottom. So looks almost like a robot of some sort with like these huge kind of non-organic bits on his ears. This 1,000-yard stare, this kind of crazy hat thing. There's a little glimpse of hair under there. I assume that's hair. But like this very different collar from the collar that all of them have that's coming up from underneath. And then this crazy sword that has like this very spiked out design to it that it just hangs here like below his crotch. Also notable the painted nails and the one very long middle nail. For what reason? But of course, very evocative kind of group of characters, as you would hope that the captains are. They all have very striking designs, and they end up being pretty significant characters, right? So you want them to have pretty significantly distinct designs. And as a fan of Bleach, I could name, even though I'm terrible with names, I could name everybody in this room. So I think it's effective, at least insofar as it works for me, and I've learned these characters. Now, I couldn't tell you what division every single one of them belongs to. I'm not that good, but yeah, and I could even, there is even the one missing, and I can pretty distinctly remember who that is too. So that's that. I like that this also leaves us on, Gin shows up assumably late. He's finally arrived. We get that line of, there you are. What do you have to say for yourself? And so you have to wonder what that's in relation to. Assumably, it's not just for showing up late, because no matter what, someone has to show up late, and he's not the last person here, right? There's someone else missing. So it's much more likely that it has to do with something that's happened recently. And you have to wonder if it has to do with the conspiracy that Aizen was talking about, right? Where Aizen has his thoughts, and if certainly someone's going to be involved in a conspiracy, it's going to be this heavily suspect-looking guy. But then also, more immediately, we can think about the actions that we've actually seen Gin take, where he was first to respond to the Ryoka at the wall, and not only did he cut off Jidan, like he made an attempt at the Gate Guardian's life. So maybe he'll get reprimanded from that, but more than likely it might be for his failure to kill Ichigo and his allies, right? That they did confront each other, but he only kind of kept them from gaining entry rather than slaughtering them all. Which the sort of soul society that we're learning about, the brutality that they have, that seems more likely than those other things. So we'll have to wait till the next chapter to figure out what this interaction is, at least, right? So it's one of those things that kind of keeps you excited. You want to know about all these characters. You want to see them have interactions. You want to see what happens. I think that's an effective sort of way to end a chapter. And the really good thing about having this A and this B plot that I think are both kind of interesting is that you can end it on, a cool cliffhanger moment for really either of them. and then deliver on that the next chapter or even a while down. You don't have to do it immediately because it's not the only plot you're focusing on. Which oftentimes in the human realm, we just had a singular plot to follow. So the next chapter, while we could switch a perspective to another character, we couldn't really build as effective like a distinct A and B plot, right? And whenever I talk about A and B plots, I just mean these plots that are happening in tandem in the universe, that are, that have different point of view characters that are distinctive from each other. It's often used in television, but we mentioned that before, so I'm not going to belabor the point. I do like that we get reminded of Karen, that there's more hollows lately. She's seen another one. We know that maybe there's more because she's become more perceptive of hollows and ghosts and all of that. But it also could be that with all of the issues going on with Soul Society, they have less people to really go and banish hollows down there in Karakura Town. As we know as well, Rukia was the person looking over Karakura Town, and her duties were then extended to Ichigo. So at the very moment, it might be that they're scrambling to get an effective Soul Reaper down there to kind of look over that area. Because as we know from the structure of Soul Society, different squads and different Soul Reapers are assigned to the various areas to kind of overlook them. It's kind of like, okay, well, this is your beat, like, yeah, you're a cop for this, this state or whatever, this society even, but you have a very localized sort of route and area, not this is ASAP. Not all Shinigamis are that way, but no, I'm just joking. Anyway, that's the end of this chapter. All in all, I do like this chapter a good bit. I really like those interactions that we get both between Ichigo. We get a very minor one with Uryu there, where Uryu does sort of try to kind of roll things over with Ichigo and realizes something's wrong, but Uryu doesn't have that same sort of connection with Ichigo as Orihime does, right? Where they've known each other for a longer time. I do like that, Chad. I say I do like that Chad doesn't have anything to say. I mean, Chad is Ichigo's homie, so Chad will go along with anything. But he's very very much a follower, a good friend, but like not somebody that's going to get argumentative with you, right? But I do like that Orihime and Ichigo have that moment, and then I also like that Ganju and Ichigo have that very strong moment there that really changes Ganju's perspective of Ichigo. I think that's very effective and really well done within this chapter. I also like that they did the visual that I was hoping they would do with the Spirit Orb. It's great that I mentioned that. It might have been hanging around in my subconscious because I forgot about that entirely, and I had not read ahead. I try not to read ahead on these, which does make me have to re-record anytime a character shows up and I have no idea what kind of where I'm going to start with their voice, or if I mess up a line or something like that because I'm not anticipating it. I think the big thing that happens is if someone's dialogue starts before they get on page, it can be difficult for me to find exactly how I'm going to do their dialogue because I don't know who is speaking yet. It isn't that big of a problem so long as it's clearly, someone from off page is speaking. Like reading it in a manga format's not a problem. It's just reading it aloud. It's like, okay, well, which character is this? Where do I have to go with my vocal register? But yeah, all in all, cool chapter, and I think really, really great chapter for just having a striking introduction of all the various captains, save one, in the same place. Now, I will say, as a little bit of a little hint, a little nudge, a little bit of trivia, you have seen that one other captain already in the manga. Think about it. You'll figure it out. Anyway, and if you can't figure it out, go back and look at the previous chapters. But you have seen him. I will say it's a him, and you have seen him. Anyway, that's it for this one, folks, as far as the analysis and response goes. We're going to hop right into spoiler territory. We're going to talk about... Oop, I jumped a little bit too far back. We're going to talk about how this Chapter 81 connects to the rest of the manga, right? So let's get right into that. Immediately, I do like that we get this establishment for how their different reishi manipulation is working, and this ends up kind of being kind of telling. Of course, Orihime is pretty good at it because she's manipulating these little fairies that end up manifesting her reishi externally from her all the time. Chad's is a very physical and immediate one. I also like that, unstable but strong is in there, but he's also just got it in the one hand, like the arm, which maybe, we know the other arm is his actual destructive arm, and this is his defensive one. So that's an interesting kind of thought to have. It's like, man, if you put both hands on it, would it be like even worse? Of course, Ishida. I like that Ishida's is, I like that his isn't the perfect one, because just show that he does have space to grow. Even though he is familiar with these Quincy tools, maybe not with exactly like forming these spells in this way. Not like our other Fullbringer characters. Um, whereas yeah, Ichigo absolutely struggles with this manifestation. It's interesting to think about like Ichigo struggling with these things, but one of the things I did want to bring up is again, whenever I started talking about Ichigo and the ways that he deals with these issues, I really thought forward of like how he starts to struggle with his hollow mask and starts to push away all the people that care about him and that are close, and that like whenever he really gets into the Visor arc, he has to rely on this new group of strangers. And we see that again, sort of, whenever Ichigo is struggling with everything in the Fullbring arc as well, right? And so this ends up still being a characteristic of Ichigo that he often has difficulty having other people help him. Or at the very least, he often wants to take on these burdens all by himself, but he doesn't need to. And I like that his friends understand that, and that they find different ways to assist him and to try to come to his aid throughout the various story arcs. I think it's good stuff. Of course, we get that mention of kind of having to eat, having to consume things to replenish your reishi, essentially. You get hungry, right? And that ends up being pretty pertinent whenever we get to finally the 1,000-Year Blood War, because we have like the entire, oh god, I'm trying to, is it like Hirofume? I'm trying to remember the woman's name, the one Squad Zero leader. I say they're all leaders, I suppose. It's hard for me to remember all of Squad Zero. There's Tenjiro, Ichibei, trying to remember the Senjumaru. So it's Tenjiro, Ichibei, Senjumaru, Oetsu, and then like Hirofume or something like that, or Hifume, something like that. But she's the one that deals with the food, right, and the replenishment, and how that'll bolster your spiritual body. And I think she's also the one that invented Kanpaku. I could be wrong. Like not Kanpaku the spirit, but like the soul candy. I think she's the one that invented that too. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's her thing, her recent contribution. And the whole mod soul thing. So yeah, it's interesting that like the mention of food being tied to your spirit gets brought up this early, and it ends up being like a major defining character of one of the most significant. I say the most significant. I mean, she doesn't do a ton, but of one of the major players, like as late as the final arc. So this idea of food being significant, I like that it's brought up here early in relation to the chip to the spirit, and it continues to be the case. Because that's good world build. I'm gonna harp on that kind of thing forever. I think it's mostly I just had to come across a bunch of people this week, especially that were really dogging on Bleach's world building, and I was like, "You guys have no idea what you're talking about." Again, it's consistency, and this is consistent. It builds on itself meaningfully, and it's not wasteful with what it shows you either. Anyway. Yeah, da da da. I'm trying to think of what other kind of connections that we have here. We do get the basis for spells being, that this imagining of the thing. That you picture this very, very heavy kind of thing, and imagine yourself diving in the center of it is just to kind of form it around you, right? But that there's this sort of visualization and then manifestation of that, and that's kind of interesting. I like that it's got to do with like this darkness and this heaviness to kind of help manifest it, but that's the imagery used. Not just because it's striking to put on page, but I like that corresponds with Ichibei's ink in a way, right? That like Ichibei writes these things into reality, and they kind of create like this dark, heavy, like splotting of ink on the page kind of thing, right? They're trying to manifest these things into their reality as well, which, as we know, the reality of Bleach exists within ink. Man, Ichibei gets me so like. What a great set of powers for a character that manipulates reality within a manga. And like I think Kubo dances with it just enough to like keep it like meta enough without being too winking, you know? Like there's never a part where like Ichibi is like, what if we were all in a world of ink? Herder hertabo, you know, like that kind of thing. It never gets like too much like Ichibi looks at you, the person reading, and it's like somebody could be reading our world right now. Ha ha ha. None of that. But it is significant because again, we experience Bleach this medium of ink, and that's why. That's the real reason. You want to know a real justification for why you should read Bleach in black and white, other than the fact that it's called Bleach and it's all about the interplay between black and white, and other than the fact that Kubo designed it entirely in black and white and drew the characters in black and white. So there's some author intentionality there. It's because Ichibei as a character doesn't work when the world is colorful. Or at least to the extent that he does. When it is a world of black and white inks in the way that it is, Ichibei suddenly makes a lot more sense whenever he is commanding black and white, like black inks, right? And so the idea of immediately like picturing the thing with these heavy black inks substantiates it within the world of Bleach because it literally does so on the page as well, right? So it's a little bit of a meta thing here, and that's kind of why I like that. Like that picturing of the thing is significant, but then also, as we come to find, the naming of the thing is also something that gives it reality and form. Just as again within a manga, whenever something has a name, it's significant, right? It holds that significance and has an identity, and so it continues to exist in the page and in our imagination in that way. So, cool stuff. I like that there's an eternal consistency from page 81 to when Ichibei shows up, like over, what, like 700 chapters later? 800? Something like that? So, a while later. Anyway, it's, I don't know exactly when. I couldn't tell you, like 685? I don't know. I don't know my chapter numbers. I'm not that deep in the sauce. Maybe I better finish this whole reread. Anyway, and as I said, I'm terrible at tying names to things, and especially numbers to things. So that I don't have that skill to be like, oh yeah, in chapter like 57, whenever this was happening, like I couldn't tell you. I'm only able to tell you things that happened that we've already read in certain chapters because we've recently read them, and because I made whole videos on them. Anyway, I like that we then have, this massive door for the Squad 1 sort of meeting room here. I'm trying to think of, anything to comment really on the looks for these characters. I kind of gave these lines. I imagine that they're spoken by Yamamoto, but we don't really get a good look at Yamamoto in this spread the way that it is presented here. Because, again, he is cut off in the way that he is. Obviously, I do like that we get familiar faces on both sides. I think that helps. Here that we have Zaraki and Aizen on the one side. I assume that the odd number captains are on this side because it's 5, 7. What is it? 11th. So is Tosin 9th? Anyway, so it must be odd on the side, and so Gin would go and take a stance next to Aizen, I assume, where he would stand if it follows that. Because on the other side, this must be, it's 2nd, 4th, 6th. So it's at, 8th, 10th, 12th? And we are missing 13 over here, which would be, right, because 11th is Kenpachi's, if I'm remembering correctly. Which makes me pretty sure that 13th is Jushiro, who isn't here. But yeah, interesting that they are lined up that way, that it is essentially 1 in the middle and then 2 and 3, 4 and 5, so on and so forth. So it gives you an even 6 on each side. So Gin should be on the right side, and so should Jushiro. By the way, whenever I mentioned the captain that we've already seen, if you don't, I mean, if you've read Bleach already, you know it's Jushiro, right? But as far as whenever we have seen Jushiro before, that was in the Grand Fisher arc, whenever Rukia had her kind of flashback to talking to Jushiro about Kain's death and about like the reasons why a man goes to fight, right? And he said, the different reasons why somebody gets engaged in a fight, like a fight for pride, right, or a fight for their life, that sort of thing, or it was like honor, whatever it is. That was Jushiro. Now that was before Kuba decided that they should all have cool white cloaks, but it was Jushiro nevertheless, because it would have made sense for Rukia to be talking to him. Anyway, I guess a couple notable things. Obviously, these looks are going to be a little bit different from the eventual looks that we do get for these characters. Other than the ones that clearly their looks change a lot over time anyway. As we know, Kenpachi changes up his look plenty. So does Tosen. So does Komamura. Aizen has a pretty big glow up. I don't think Soifan's going to change her look very much. And, Retsu's going to be the same for most of the series. But Byakuya does get a little bit of a different outfit, as does Shunsui, although they remain largely the same. But I mean, the way in which they are drawn, I think the most notable are the two on in here, both Hitsugaya and Mayuri. So Toshiro and what is Mayuri? Koro Hitsugi, something like that. Mayuri, something like that. Koro Hitsugi. I think it's Koruhitsugi. Trying to remember if I can remember all their names off the top of my head. I did say that I could do that. So it's Yamamoto Ginryusai, Sosuke Aizen. Oh, I can't remember Komamura's whole name. Sajin. It's Komamura Sajin. I lied. I do remember his name. Kanami Tosen, Ichimaru Gin, and Zaraki Kenpachi. Because Zaraki doesn't actually have a full name, right? And then we get Soifan. Does Soifan have a... Is it just Soifan? Yeah. Anyway, Uno Hanaretsu are, super spoilers, Yachuru, right? But if you're in the spoiler section, super spoilers, right? 1,000-Year Blood War stuff. But Yakua Kichiki, oh boy, I'm just butcher these names. Koraku Shunsui, Yugatake Jushiro was on the other side. He's not here. We got Toshiro Hitsugaya and Mayuri Korohitsugi, I think is his full name. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm sure people will let me know. I'm probably just going to look it up after this to assure myself. No, I can definitely name all of the 13 captains. Captains not pictured include, like Hirako Shinji, Rose, and I can. Is it Rose Aikawa or is it Love Aikawa? And then I don't remember Rose's name. That is. I think it's Love Aikawa. And Rose, I don't remember Rose's full name. But Love's not a captain. Rose is. As is Kensei, which I don't remember Kensei's full name either. But yeah, Kensei, Rose, and Shinji obviously not pictured. Anyway, that's just me talking about captain names. You could have gotten out of here plenty earlier. As far as why there's... went forward a little bit too much. I had the whole volume ready to go in this folder. Or this viewer, basically. So, as far as why there's more hollows, it's exactly what I'm talking about, where Rukia was the one overlooking this district, and really it was Ichigo, and so without them here over the last few days, there have been more hollows. And as we know, it was Zenosuke, whoever it is, that the Afro guy has to show up to kind of take care of hollows in Karakura later, right? So, Afro Man's clearly not here doing his job. But yeah, that's it for this chapter. I'll leave our cool lineup of characters here. But thanks for joining me as always. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Trying to be a little bit more concise with these. I don't like making videos closer to 2 hours. I'd rather them be honestly closer to 30 minutes, but there's just no way. I'd have to be really glossing over what I want to say. And as concise as I like being, I also like talking about Bleach. So you're going to listen to me talk about a lot of Bleach, I suppose. Anyway, as always, please do like the video if you watch the whole video. That does help me. Um, and, I'm interested in your takes. If you saw something that I didn't, if there's a bit of spoiler kind of stuff, make sure you mark it as a spoiler. But otherwise, there's something that you notice in this chapter that you feel significant, do please let me know. I'm always interested in your takes. Or if you disagree with me on anything, we'll have to talk about that. But otherwise, as always, if you do want to support the channel, one of the best things that you can do, other than, sharing these videos with people that you think would enjoy them, liking them, subscribing, all that, the typical YouTube stuff. The other big thing is, of course, to support me on Patreon. I do have a Patreon. You can support me for however much you feel, as low as $1 a month, which is really nothing. But right now you are seeing on page all of my current supporters as of making this video. I do want to give a shout out to the folks that are there. Thank you so much. But as always, this has been Carker Gold, reminding you that spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.